What's up, duelists? Last weekend was RBET, and by last weekend I mean literally yesterday. 192 players, 2-day event, free to enter, big cash prize, you know the vibe. A lot of people were asking me over the course of the weekend, how do I play in this event? There's a Discord in the link, or there's a link to a Discord in the description below, the really big Yu-Gi-Oh Discord. Join there. The dates for the next RBET have just been announced. It's July 1st and 2nd, so go ahead and join there if you want to play in the next one. If you guys think like, oh, I could beat these guys, or if you guys just want to try your hand at some competition, high level competition in Edison format. These are the top 8 players. We have Jan Dame. I'm probably going to be butchering some of these names. I'm sorry. Fancy Diesel, Freya, Dimitri, Accident Prone, A True Hero, Callum, and Stevie, of course, at first place. I'm going to go through all the deck lists with y'all. You know how it is. Top 8 deck list time. Let's go ahead and get into 7th place. There's 2 7th place players, 2 5th place players because the tournaments are double elimination. Now, the reason I like double elimination because it makes this nice little pretty graphic. There's no draws. You can see that there's, some wins, a good number of wins from these players. Some of these players have pretty impressive records. Okay, so this is Jan Dame at 7th place. He was playing Blackwings. The list looks pretty standard, but he does have 2 Legacy of Yatagarasu as a way to sort of bait through heavy storms. Pretty good stuff. I think this is Jan Dame's first time top 8ing one of these tournaments. Congratulations on earning your invite to RBET Rulers. So that's one of the biggest draws to playing in this event is because you get an invite to the end of the year, basically World Championship of Edison, where you get to play against only the top 8 players in an invitational bracket. It's super hype. It's super fun. You can watch the previous year's RBET Rulers. It's still up in the live tab on my channel, etc., etc. If you guys want to get an idea of the level of competition that you're going to be facing if you do end up earning your invite for that kind of thing. Yeah, the deck's pretty straightforward. I do love the Grand Mole tech. I think Legacy is a very interesting card. It's put up a number of results thus far in varying decks. I think it comes in and out of favor. It's best when it's not expected, and it's also best when you have some easy options to side it out for. Looks like he was able to side these out for like Deck Dev or Dust Tornado, depending on the matchup, which makes it, a lot more desirable. I think tricks that only work once, you want to be able to side them out easily, and it looks like he has a list that's very capable of doing that. Lots of generically good cards that he could bring in for Legacy here. So, very good stuff. Congratulations to Jan Dame for his first top 8 in an RBET and earning an invite to RBET Rulers. Okay, next deck list, also at 7th place, is Fancy Diesel's Diva Zombie deck list. This deck list looks pretty interesting. He's only got 2 Divas. I like this. I don't really like drawing multiple Divas. If you play 2 of them, there's less of a chance you draw multiple. That's how it goes. But if you do play 2 of them, if you draw multiple, it's worse. So it's up in the air whether or not it's better or worse. Double DD Crow, he is maining the Spirit Reaper. This is a card that I've been thinking should probably get cut from zombies moving forward. It's like not that good of a card. In a lot of the popular matchups, I think it's pretty mid. I also think that I do like his number of 2 Pyramid, 2 Mystic Tomato. I think that's like a decent number for Diva Zombies. I don't think you want to be playing more than that because then you become really, really normal summon heavy. I like that he's cut back on normal summons as much as possible. That, to me, shows the sign of a good Diva Zombie deck list. The best part about this deck list is, honestly, when you're sacrificing Goblin Zombie for Caius, that's your middle ground play when you're not going for the Diva combi. So maxing Caius makes just total sense to me. And then I also do like his addition of 2 main deck DD Crows. This helps you deal with, comeback plays. So basically, sometimes you can't go for an OTK with this deck. You have to go like Bryo Goyo. And then your opponent has an opportunity. Like, they usually have one opportunity, but they usually do have an opportunity where they can, summon a Blizzard or summon a Debris Dragon and then come back against you. I do like that because you have 2 DD Crows. You're able to deal with that. I don't like that he's cut Phoenix Wing Wind Blast. I think that card's really good. I also don't really love Burial, but, it worked out well for him. Dust Tornado in the main is good. I do like Starlight Road in the main. When I'm playing these types of recruiter zombie decks, I do like to set a ton of cards because I need to be able to threaten a lot of different things, basically. The sideboard is where things get really interesting. He has double Skill Drain. I really like Skill Drain in this deck. I have been playing it in Welly Dad a lot, and I've been loving it. I've been playing it in Diva Zombies a lot and loving it, so I think that that's a great addition. It helps a lot versus Christia. It helps a lot versus Lightsworn. Those 2 matchups are actually really hard for this deck, I think. So, well, Lightsworn not so much. And then it can also help versus Fairies, which it's a very difficult matchup without Skill Drain. Triple Knock, very nice. Helps you deal with turn 1 sets so you yourself don't get Caiused. I think that's pretty important in this format. It's just making sure you don't get Caiused, especially if you're playing these heavy recruiter, heavy normal summon type decks. If you get Caiused once, you fall behind and then you lose momentum. he looks like he's not on the pulling the rugs. Instead, he's opting to go for noblemen to try and remove their opening set, which is one of the ways you can approach not getting Kaiused in this format. Double light mirror for fairies, double compulsory. Compulsory is very good in this format, and especially in this meta. It's good against absolute zero. It's good against like annoying monsters that are difficult to summon, but then like once they're summoned, they're kind of vulnerable to being returned to the hand. Stuff like, I want to say, like Armed Wing, like value into Armed Wing, that kind of stuff. Maybe not difficult to summon, but they're kind of resource intensive to summon. Absolute zero. I'm blanking on this, but you guys know what I'm talking about. Synchro monsters, fusion monsters, some tribute summon monsters. Cards like Titanial, like if they just go Lone Fire Titanial, Compulsory is pretty good there. Helps you deal with Drill Warrior. This deck actually really struggles with Drill Warrior. And then Double D Prison, Dust Tornado, just coverage stuff. Double Cyber Dragon, just coverage stuff. I like his list a lot. I think it's really solid. There are a few things I would probably change in it, but there are a lot of things that I do kind of enjoy. So yeah, good stuff. Congrats to Fancy Diesel for his 7th place finish and for earning his invite into RBET Rulers. Okay, next at 5th place, we're going to cover both 5th place deck lists, is the Quick Draw deck from the event. This is Freya's Quick Draw Dandy Warrior deck. This deck looks a lot like the Quick Draw Dandy Warrior decks we've seen of old, but it's got a few new techs. It's got one Cyber Valley, which is a way you can help convert off of a Lingering Dandy token, which is really cool. He's playing the full 3 copies of Pot of Avarice. According to Joshua Schmidt, who helped me cover this event, he says that you are a coward if you don't play the full 3, which I don't know if I necessarily agree with, but it worked out very well for Freya. They were able to earn their invite and make it into 5th place, so that's a solid finish for a deck like this. As far as trap cards go, they got one main deck Dust. Something that we're seeing a lot of in these top 8 deck lists is a main deck Dust, so interesting to see it also here. And then Call of the Haunted, which is a card I'm pretty happy with in general in the format. I think this is one of the better cards in the format that people aren't playing in some lists. They probably should be. I think it's really good in like even some of the top decks like Blackwings, and it doesn't see a lot of play in those. Obviously, you don't want to conflict with oppression, and sometimes it can be dead if you don't have a monster or your monster gets banished. But the power of like being able to like Call of the Haunted, something like that is super immediately threatening. Like in this deck, you could call Haunted Caius, Titanial Gores, even Call of the Haunted on Sangan's really good, or Call of the Haunted on like Debris Dragon and make it a synchro or whatever is really good. In like Blackwings, you can call the Haunted Sirocco. I think this card's just really good in general. I think it's very slept on. Trap Dushu in the main, all the staple trap cards in the main. I like it a lot. In the sideboard, we got a Thunder King and double Consecrated. I do think Consecrated is one of the best choices to combat Blackwings, and it clearly worked out well for Freya here in this event. Also, we saw Freya use Trap Stun to great success. So instead of going for Consecrated plus Decree, they elected to go for Consecrated plus Trap Stun, which is functionally the same. As long as you can negate that Icarus attack, then you are fine. One Trap Hole to help against Blackwings. I like that there's so many cards here to help against Blackwings, because it even though I do think Blackwings is a top deck, I don't think it's the best deck, but it's definitely the most popular deck. So even though it's not like even though you're not like, you don't need to cover it because it's like not theoretically the best deck, you do need to cover it because it is literally the most popular deck. So yeah, having a lot of cards for Blackwings makes perfect sense. My Body as a Shield helps you against Nobleman on your set Raikos, helps you against Icarus attack, helps you against all of the destruction-based trap cards. I like this card a lot. One Thunder King, you really only need the one, I think, because you can loop it with Drill Warrior, theoretically, and Avarice, but you don't really want to draw 2 of them. Drawing the first one is good. Drawing the second one is diminishing returns because it doesn't really get you going, and it is a normal summon. So, like, you don't really want to be summoning Thunder King more than once unless you're already set up with Drill, basically. That's the way I see this card in this deck. But, yeah, no, it's solid. Double Cyber Dragon, of course. Double DD Crow, of course. Double Pulling the Rug. Like, pretty standard stuff. Like, DD Crow, Cyber Dragon, Light Mirror, Pulling the Rug. Like, these are going to be pretty standard stuff that we see in a lot of sideboards. I do think Trap Stun is super sick. One thing that's interesting about the extra deck is that they do have Catastrophe Bionic. I wonder if these ever came up. Because, like, I feel like you could fit more stuff that would come up more often. Like, I've summoned double Ancient Fairy Dragon before in this deck. Like, that's something I've definitely done. I've also summoned double Iron Chain before in this deck. So, I don't know if that's something he wants to consider. And then also, when you have Call of the Haunted, Trident Dragon does actually come up, like, a fair bit. Because Debris plus Call of the Haunted becomes a Trident Dragon kill. So, I think having Trident Dragon is definitely something to consider for an extra deck like this, especially because you do have that Call of the Haunted. I wonder if that was on their radar or it just never came up for them in testing. Ally of Justice and Bionic can't actually be summoned in this deck because Debris Dragon can only make dragons and Quick Draw can only make Synchron guys. So there's no real reason to have them outside of like randomly being able to brain control a Gale. That's the way I see it, but who knows? Who knows? Maybe it came up for them enough where they wanted to have Catastrophe and Bionic. I don't know. I still feel like having the other utility cards that you can actually summon is slightly better, but who knows? Who knows? Congratulations to Freya on the 5th place finish. Really cool quick draw deck list. I'm excited to see it do well because honestly, I think this deck is good. I think quick draw is one of the top decks in the format. I placed it in A tier in my recent tier list video, and I do stand by that choice. I think the deck is very solid. It has pretty good matchup spread in general. You're pretty versatile. You are hard pressed to brick outside of like drawing multiple tributes, multiple avarice. But like if you ever get drill going, you can convert all of your like pseudo dead draws, quote unquote, into either dandy tokens or like real actual monsters threats. So I think that this deck has sort of an upside where it can play a lot of these like high power, like triple avarice, heavy storm cards that kind of break in some matchups. But if you do draw them dead, you can pitch them to Drill Warrior, which is really nice. It can convert all dead cards into a real card, and that's a strength that not a lot of decks can boast. So I definitely think this deck is strong, and I'm excited to see what it does moving forward. Okay, next deck list at 5th place, we have a really interesting Blackwing list from Dimitri, aka Datao. One of the most powerful duelists to ever do it. This is not his first time in an RBET top 8. He is top 8'd with multiple different decks. And he says he stands by his decision to not play Icarus Attack. He thinks that it is correct in today's metagame. That's very interesting because I personally do like Icarus Attack with Greffer, and I like Icarus Attack a lot less without Greffer. But here he is playing Greffer with no Icarus Attack, and he says it's just straight up better, which is very interesting. He's on this tech card, Dark Illusion. I think this card is very slept on in Blackwings because oftentimes you're going to die to monster removal. Kais, Brain Control, Book of Moon, that type of thing, Deep Prison, that sort of thing gets you kind of owned. And Dark Illusion stops that. Not only that, but Dark Illusion can stop Raikou in the damage step, which is pretty crazy. That's not something that a lot of cards can boast at 1-for-1, basically. This card is heat. I really like it. Unfortunately, I do think this card gets worse after it's been seen. So, like, if your opponent is targeting your monsters with stuff like Caius, right? Because they think, oh, I should target the monster because that's safer. The second they know about Dark Illusion, they're going to start targeting your back row, which is where I feel like you kind of want the mix-up of Icarus Attack. But I haven't tested this deck list, and I don't exactly know. I do like that he's playing Mind Control in the main. I think Mind Control is amazing in Blackwings. I think it's like one of the best cards in the format. I also do like that he's playing Torrential in the main. This is a change that a lot of Blackwing players made this event to make top 8, is that they are playing Torrential. Torrential is one of those cards that drastically improves your matchups versus Frog Monarchs. That deck can sometimes give Blackwings trouble game 1. Having Torrential Tribute in your deck basically means that you're never going to get dupe blocked for that long. If your opponent has the dupe block, they summon a Monarch, they activate the effect, you chain Torrential, you get a 3-for-1. It's like one of the best cards against frogs in game 1. So I think that that's a good inclusion, especially because if you're not playing Icarus Attack, you don't have a lot of ways to like break up some established boards. So Torrential is one of the best ways of doing that. I think you need it if you don't have the other thing. And then he is also playing Gores in the main, which is interesting because this is a Black Rowan deck. On top of that, he's not playing Royal Oppression. So a lot of interesting choices for the main deck of this deck. I do like it a lot, and I do think Dimitri's a very good player. So something like this is definitely not necessarily wrong. There's just a lot of interesting choices, a lot of interesting changes, and his tech card, Dark Illusion, worked out really well for him, solidifying him in top 8, top 5, whatever the fuck the place was, I don't even remember. In the sideboard, he has one DD Warrior Lady. This is something that I showed in my tier list video, was the one DD Warrior Lady in the side. It's basically like you get aside 2 cards for the slot of 1 card because you have Rhoda in your main deck. It gives you 2 extra outs in post-board situations to Consecrated Light, which is very important. He's got double Fossil Dyna Pachycephalo. Also, DD Warrior Lady is great against recruiter decks, zombies, fairies, and it's really good against the mirror match too. You can basically board it in a lot of the hardest matchups to give you a slight edge. And then on top of that, it kills one of the cards that really owns you in post-board situations, which is Consecrated Light. So I do like having the one on the side. One DD Crow. Usually you only need to draw the one. Drawing multiples is kind of sus. I do like having the one just because it's like a nice little piece of interaction. Triple deck dev, I agree with this to a degree. I think if you're on Grepher, you can definitely justify triple deck dev. And if you're not on Icarus Attack, you absolutely have to have triple deck dev, I feel like. One of the reasons I don't like having triple deck dev alongside Icarus Attack is because it's just like too tribute intensive. You end up sacrificing too many of your own monsters to resolve your trap cards, and you end up being at 0 cards a lot more often than you'd really like. When you don't play Icarus Attack, it's much more justifiable to have the full 3 deck devs. And then, of course, Mind Crush to combo with those deck devs, as well as your Trap Dust Shoot, is very nice. 2 more Dark Illusion. He must have been really high on this card. It does improve your Monarch matchup a fair bit. But like I said, the second your opponent knows about it, I mean, they're going to just start Ryza targeting your back row. So that's something you definitely need to consider. And then, of course, the double Royal Oppression that I think need to exist at some degree in this deck. At least one of them. Maybe not both. But definitely you need to have at least one Royal Oppression if you're going to be playing Blackwings. The extra deck is pretty straightforward. He does have 3 Armed Wing over whatever the tech synchro is. I don't know. I've never had the 3rd Armed Wing come up. I usually cut it, but some people do. So that's it. 1 knock, interesting. Dark Illusion also kind of deals with Raikou, so you don't need to have more. Yeah, it's a really solid deck list from Dimitri. I like this list a lot. I'm looking forward to trying it out, trying out Zero Icarus. I've played Zero Icarus in the past, but I've usually replaced it with something like Phoenix Wing. He's just cut the Icarus for like straight up 1-for-1 spot removal, which is something I hadn't thought of doing, but maybe it's just good. He's also on no Book of Moon, which I find interesting. I feel like Book of Moon's pretty good in this deck, but maybe I'm just huffing copium. Maybe it's not good enough. All right, next deck. 4th place, top 4. We have a very, very interesting hero beat deck list from, oh my gosh, I didn't memorize all the names and I forgot them. Hold up. Accident Prone, from Accident Prone. This deck list is very sick. It's got main deck Soul Taker to help deal with Dupe Frog. That card can give this deck some trouble. You got main deck Shrink to help deal with monsters in the damage step. It also helps improve your Hero Blast versus some tougher monsters like Caius. You can shrink them and then Hero Blast kill them, which we saw him use to great extent on camera. You can watch, of course, all these matches. The VOD is up in full on my channel in the live tab, so definitely check it out. He's got a ton of tech cards. He's got the Grammel, the Dinah, the DD Warrior Lady, the Thunder King, the Gores, the 1 Snowman Eater. He's got 1 Future Fusion, 1 Miracle Fusion, 1 E-Call, which is absolutely insane for these types of decks. Usually you see the full 3. Only having 1, I like it and I don't like it because I really do want to be starting with that Stratos. I really want to make sure my Sparks and my Hero Blast are live. I really feel like you need at least a second E-Call here, but space is tight, and I get that. Space is definitely tight. He's also maining Heavy Storm, something that's not super common in these types of decks. He's maining 1 Royal Oppression, 1 Compulsory. This guy just loves his 1-ups. I mean, like, I gotta respect it too, because how does your opponent prepare for it, right? If they see 1 card, maybe they start preparing, playing around it, but that's the last copy of it. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden you hit him with a different tech card, and a different one, and a different one. Diversify your tech cards, diversify your threats, and your opponent won't know what to play around. It gets a lot of people off guard, and I think it played to his advantage, and it's part of the reason he definitely plays, he obviously plays in top 4 of this tournament. The sideboard, again with the tech cards, 1 Banisher, 2nd Fossil Dyna, 2nd Thunder King, 1st Kaiku, 1st Sirocco. Triple knock. I do like this triple knock. I mean, just seeing it early versus Raikou is super important. Yes, maybe you draw it dead later in the game, but if you hit that early Raikou, you're usually going to win. 1 Lightning Vortex. This card is actually kind of cooked in this deck. It's kind of sick. I really like it. You summon Stratos, you search a discard fodder, you pitch your Alias to Vortex, and then all of a sudden your Hero Blast is live. Like, all right, hold up. That's kind of heat. I never really thought about playing Vortex in this deck, but it makes sense. Triple pulling the rug. Of course, you got to have it. This card is pretty fantastic in this format. Stop Caius, stop Debris Dragon, stop Junk Synchron, stop whatever, Stratos, stop Diva, stop all that stuff. Just make sure it doesn't come down and get that auto +1. Machine of Gear Frame's another one of those scary ones. Double Dust Tornado for back row and the 2nd copy of Royal Oppression. Extra deck has everything you'd expect, and that's just about it. I feel like this is a really strong deck list just because it's so teched the fuck out. It looks really cool. Shout out to Accident Prone for mixing it up on a grand scale with a deck that's normally kind of like cookie cutter. He brought all the tech options out. He said, they can't beat all my tech options. One of them's about to pop in the matchup, right? So, cool stuff for sure. All right, next deck list. 3rd place, a true hero, Diva Hero Goat. I just did a collab with him, and we played this exact deck list on his channel. Make sure and check him out. He is creating a lot of Edison content, particularly with the Diva Hero deck. this is a sick AF deck list. You've got a lot of potential for nut draws, right? You got all of the Saki 1-ofs in the world. You've got main deck Dev Mind Crush, which I actually think is so heat. Main deck Dust Tornado, again, huge at placing people into top 8, is main decking that one copy of Dust Tornado, just so you can guaranteedly get through Oppression a little bit more consistently than with just Heavy and Typhoon. He's also not a proponent of Phoenix Wing Windblast in this deck. Even though Phoenix Wing Windblast is one of the most popular picks for this deck, he elected not to use it. He was on double Gold Sark, and we saw him use Gold Sark for a lot of different things in the tournament. He Gold Sark for Heavy Storm, he Gold Sark for Future Fusion, he Gold Sark for Miracle, he Gold Sark for Dark Arm. There's a bunch of different stuff you can Gold Sark for in this deck, and it's really nice. Having Dust Shoot Crush deck dev is really cool for this deck too. I think the main deck dev is a little bit pre, and in some matchups it's going to be not that good, but it's like good enough, and it also helps you if you like just summon a Caius and they try to bottomless it, and then you can chain deck dev, and then you get that free information. Like, it's not the worst even in the matchups where it's dead. Most decks are playing at least 5 monsters that get hit with deck dev. So if your Caius is trading with the bottomless, and then you trade the deck dev with maybe 1 discard or 1 destruction, that's usually good enough. And then on top of that, in the matchups where it like absolutely crushes, which is like quick draw fairies, etc., it is decent enough to have it in the main because you have that chance to just absolutely obliterate your opponent before they're even prepared to deal with it, like in the post-war games. So yeah, I think this deck list is insanely heat. I think A True Hero is a great player. Definitely check out his content. Check out the collab that we did together where we're playing this deck. And check out our collab on this channel as well. We did another collab with a more fun version of Diva Hero on this channel. Sideboard, he's sideboarding Consecrated Lights and Decrees for Blackwings. Basically, he says, I have a lot of dark monsters, but you have only dark monsters. So I can beat you with just 1 monster plus a Consecrated and a Decree. That's his game plan. I think it's solid. I think it's decent. I'm not really sure if I like it so much because there are just so many dark monsters in the main deck, but if you want like a free and easy win versus Blackwings, which again is the most popular deck, this is not a bad way to go about it. Consecrated plus Decree is definitely not a bad way to go about beating Blackwings, especially in post-board situations, especially in Diva Hero, which is a deck where they definitely won't expect Consecrated Light post-board because you play so many dark monsters yourself. It's definitely a good mix-up. Vanity's Fiend, Fossil Dinos, gotta have them. Soul Release, I'm not sure if I like this card, but he does. 1 Light Mirror, 1 Mask of Restrict, additional Floodgates. You can board these in some matchups like Lightsworn, where you maybe don't want your Space Typhoon and your Heavy Storm. They can come in pretty easily, or your Dust Tornado, whatever. Frogs as well for the Mask of Restrict. And then, yeah, I mean, just a really solid deck list, man. This is such a cool deck list. I've always liked Diva Hero in this format. I've always thought it was like a solid deck, except for before we knew about it. Before I knew about it, I was like, Absolute Zero decks kind of need a lot for Miracle Fusion to go off. But the second I started seeing play, I was like, oh, I believe now. I believe. And I've always been a believer since then. You know how it goes. Solid deck list. Good stuff from A True Hero. I'm excited to see what he does in the future. Congrats on earning your invite and 3rd place finish. Next up, 2nd place, we have Callum. You guys have seen this deck list before. This is actually James Ark's deck list that he used to win a Starlight Rare Black Rose Dragon. This is a very solid deck list. There's very few holes in it. The coolest thing about this deck list, I think, is the inclusion of Phoenix Wing Windblast. I think it works really well with this type of engine. It works well with Ocean. It works well with Hero Blast. It works well with just like Stratos in general. I think double Gilman is necessary if you're playing this style of Diva Hero deck. Just because you won't have that extra body a lot of the time. So you want your second Diva to also be good. Or if you draw your first Gilman, you want your first Diva to be good on its own. You don't have that sort of like malicious or that Diva plus Goblin Zombie play where you have a bunch of extra non-tuner bodies. In this deck, you want your Diva to just be a standalone play a lot of the time. It's like just a tour guide into Android a lot of the time. So that's why I think you do need to play the double Gilman. Gilman on its own is a terrible draw, which is something you can't really avoid when you're playing Diva, unfortunately. It's just the nature of the card is that you draw Gilman and that's a Garnet. It's a brick. But it looks like it didn't really end up mattering too much because he was able to make 2nd place in one of the biggest tournaments of the year. I think this is the 2nd biggest tournament of the year thus far in Edison format, which is crazy. And boasting a 2nd place finish with this list is very solid. Sideboard, Simp, Limp, you know the vibes. You got Neo-Spacian Grammel, which is a card that put up a lot of work this weekend. It was in a lot of players' topping deck lists, so I think this card is very slept on. Yeah, DD Warrior Lady. Card is showing its face. This card's very good. Mind Crush, pulling the rugs. Pretty straightforward stuff. Nothing too crazy. Only one Gaia in the sideboard. I wonder if that ever comes up. Nah, probably not. You just need the 6s. You need the 8s. Yeah, the extra deck is the only thing where I'm like, Yeah, it's probably fine. It's probably fine. I'm thinking you definitely need double Catastrophe for some matchups like Lightsworn and Fairy. Yeah, I think the extra deck is fine. I don't see you making level 8s like Thought Ruler that often anyway. Because like I said, you don't have that extra non-tuner body to synchro with that frequently. I do also like Call of the Haunted a lot in this deck. Last bit I want to talk about on this deck is Call of the Haunted. It's super insane. You call Stratos, you get a +1. Now note if you use Call of the Haunted, Chain Link 2 or higher, Stratos will miss timing. Something to keep in mind. You can call Ocean in your draw phase, standby phase, add something back. That's a +1. You can call Alias, turn on your Gemini Spark. That's solid. You can call Diva, make a synchro play. Call Honest, bounce it back to your hand. So I really do like Call of the Haunted in this deck. I think it's very good. You can even call Stratos, blow up a back row. A lot of utility. One of the more powerful cards in this format for sure, especially in decks like this. Okay, and then first place, of course, you have Stevie's Blackwing deck list. There's one major card missing from this deck list. Take a moment to see if you can figure it out. That's right, Brain Control. Stevie cut Brain Control from the deck. That's crazy. That's actually crazy. Why would you do that? Why would you cut Brain Control? Stevie really wanted to play triple Upstart Goblin in Blackwings to make sure that they saw the Black Whirlwind as early as possible. They are not playing Dark Grepher. They are playing triple Deep Prison, triple Icarus Attack, single Oppression, single Starlight Road. So they've got one of each in the main. They have the second Oppression in the side. Sideboard is like literally just like your stock sideboard in Edison, like top 10 sideboard cards plus 2 skill drain, 2 deck dev, which is like, honestly, that's pretty fire. That's pretty fire. Electing to use skill drain over something like pulling the rug, over something like, I'm not even sure what else would be in this spot. I wonder why. I wonder why skill drain. I feel like Blackwings, they kind of need their effects. I feel like skill drain is not, I don't know. Maybe. Oh my god, I just realized I accidentally muted my mic for the last 15 seconds. God damn it. Okay. I was saying, why would you... I'm not going to retake the whole video because of that, but it is funny. While you're here, don't forget to like and subscribe. I was basically postulating why he would want skill drain over something like pulling the rug or over something like Book of Moon, just something that does a little bit more. I'm not sure what skill drain really does for this deck. I feel like part of the strength of the Blackwing monsters actually is their effects. Like, you're going to struggle to get over some bigger monsters without Kalut if you have skill drain up. So, yeah, I'm not really sure. Like, if you skill drain versus a Monarch player, you're actually going to struggle to deal with, like, a resolved Monarch regardless. Because you don't have Blizzy, you don't have Sirocco, you don't have a lot of your ways to get over that monster. So I wonder why skill drain. I wonder what matchup that's for. You don't really want it versus zombies because, again, they can just synchro easier than you, especially under skill drain. I guess maybe it's for, like, dragons. Phantom of Chaos decks, maybe Lightsworn, something like that. I'm not sure what skill drain's for. That's the one thing I'm curious about. And I honestly, I don't know about cutting Brain Control. I don't know about that. He said, like, Brain Control is a combo card. And one of the reasons, one of the utility options that you have for Brain Control is when you take something, you go for a game shot. But that comes up significantly less because he is playing the 3 Upstart Goblins. So he's going to be giving his opponent life points a lot of the time. So he says his Brain Control becomes an additional piece of damage. It doesn't contribute to the game shot as much as it normally does because he's giving his opponent life points. And that was his reasoning for cutting it. And then he said beyond that, it's a combo card. Like, you need a tuner in order to convert with it. And I'm like, yeah, but that card's still insane. I don't know. Maybe it made sense to cut it. Maybe he just needed the space for the 3rd Upstart. That is an interesting choice. That is a very interesting choice. I'm not going to say it's necessarily right or wrong, but it's kind of a testament to, like, there are a lot of these things in Edison format. There are a lot of these things in Yu-Gi-Oh! Where we're like, this is taboo. You have to play this card. You have to play this card. And we get stuck in these mindsets where it's like, oh, yeah, that card's broken. You got to include it in your deck. When in reality, like, if it doesn't fit with the vibe, you know what I'm saying? Like, ultimately, there are cards that are right for your deck list, and there are cards that are maybe right for your deck list. And I think he went with brain control is maybe right for the deck list, but maybe it's not. And there are cards that maybe he decided I would rather have the third D prison because I'd rather just have something that guaranteedly clears the monster instead of something that only clears the monster if I have a tuner. And also, cutting brain control means you have more life points over the course of most of your games to be able to pay for Royal Oppression and to be able to fight back in aggro mirrors. So I can kind of see it. I can kind of not see it. I'm interested to hear your guys' thoughts on his deck list and on his performance. One other really interesting thing is he does have Ancient Fairy Dragon in his extra deck over the second Armor Master, which is interesting. I don't know if this card came up for him or when you make it, but I think it is interesting. Making a 3,000 defense guy under Skill Drain has some applications in some matchups. I'm not going to lie. You can actually deck out some decks like Dragons if they've already used their back row removal with Ancient Fairy Dragon and Skill Drain, which is kind of interesting. It's kind of interesting to think about. Good stuff. Good stuff to Stevie. Congrats to all the players who made top 8. If you guys want to play in the next one, join the Really Big Yu-Gi-Oh! Discord in the description below. And then like and subscribe. I'm trying to think what else. There was something else I had to say. Check out my tier list video, I guess, that just dropped. It talks about why I think a lot of these decks are really good. I think I have Blackwing and Hero Beat ranked pretty highly. I think I have Blackwing ranked 2nd and Hero Beat ranked 3rd or 4th. I don't really remember. But yeah, good stuff. See you guys in the next vid. Peace.